The west coast of WA offers some outstanding beauty.
The coastline, the wildlife in the waters.
The Indigenous culture.
For me, it's the wilderness. It's the diving, it's the snorkelling.
The fish and the corals.
And you will see whales.
Every day, every island, it's completely different. It's another world.
Just walking on these beautiful beaches that no footprints were on.
Up and down the coast, there's so much fresh produce, the seafood shines.
You're not going on a cruise, you're going on an adventure.
That's my happy place.
It's a great trip. It's almost the entire West Australian coast. We go to remote islands that very few people ever get to visit. And these islands are pristine. The marine life and wildlife is incredible. It's the sort of place Charles Darwin would have had a field day. People go swimming, snorkelling, diving, and the historic sites. So it's just such a great thrill for everybody.
We start in Broome and we finish in Fremantle. We stop in a few places like the Abrolhos Islands, we visit Exmouth, but this time of year the biggest appeal are the whales. We've got humpback whales scattered along the coast here, and much to the guests' delight, we're seeing them almost every day. So people get to see not only the coastal side of Australia, but also the marine side of it as well.
William Dampier. He was the first Englishman to actually set foot on Australian soil, and he was here in the 17th century, including the Dampier Peninsula, was named after him.
Where we'll meet the Murrumbidgee traditional owners, and they'll show us around their land.
You can shape that to make a spear, grind it on the grinder, make it to sharpen the edge, like a knife. So you get a kangaroo skin, you can just cut it.
All along that particular bit of coast where you have these old volcanic rocks, on the surface there's a rusty coating, which is maybe 1 millimetre thick at the most. And if you start wandering among them, you find these engravings, petro meaning rock, and glyph of course referring to the drawing part of it.
That's how we've got thousands of petroglyphs that lasted for that long, thousands of those years.
Things like hunting scenes, there's things like dance scenes, significant sites and very significant part of their cultural stories. They believe there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of them, along that stretch of coast.
The rock art, no more, we do it no more. When they finished rock art, it was probably in the 18th century.
It enables you to see it from a different perspective and talk about the importance of the petroglyphs, that art down there, with the local people.
So the guests got their first opportunity to swim in the beautiful waters of Consink Bay, which was a really special introduction to the trip, and finished the day up on the Vista deck having barbecue drinks.
It's almost like a different part of the world, but it's still Australia.
Add to the Montebello Island. Montebello, beautiful mountains. However, it's not about that at all. It's about Count Montebello is where the name came from. And so these islands that were the Montebellos are basically old coastal sand dunes that have solidified and turned into rock.
Montebello Islands are a really interesting part of Western Australian history.
We visit a place called Tremool Island, where the British government set off atomic blasts in the 1950s.
And so they had it all charted out, had everything set up to test the effects of it. It's about a 25 kiloton bomb, which is 10 kilotons more, I think, than Hiroshima.
5, 4, 3, now.
They had it all figured out weather-wise, but the plume went up higher than they thought, and instead of going west, went east. They set off 2 other explosions. They were testing the effects on towers. One around 25 kiloton, maybe bigger, and then a much larger one, 65 kilotons, probably ended up being closer to 100. Devastated the wildlife. Anything that was above ground got scorched. With better knowledge these days, we would not replicate it.
And it is now rehabilitated to a point that there's an endangered animal known as a marla, and they're successfully breeding, and they hope to reintroduce those into other areas of the country.
We sometimes come across turtle tracks. So turtles will come up to nest and lay their eggs. And you get this view of all the islands and the bays and the beautiful turquoise waters.
We arrived at Soraya Island, where we were able to have our first snorkel over Western Australia's coral reefs.
Fairly protected little area just in here. There's a lot of different types of reef. We have a number of fringing reefs, and those are around existing continental islands. A mainland fringing reef, such as Ningaloo, it's a unique situation.
Shallows where the light can penetrate, the corals, they build up gradually into reefs, and as the sea levels rise up, the growth of the corals from the seafloor matches that rising sea level. And so on the edge of the continent, wherever there's some stable land, the larvae can settle, and gradually the colony grows from single cells into multi-million colonies. And that's what's happened along the Ningaloo reef. We end up with this fringing reef along the coast.
And the benefit of that, of course, if you're on that island, you can literally just walk into the water and the reef is right there.
We have this idea that coral is bright yellow, bright green, bright red, like we used to keep in our fish tanks when we were children. It's not quite like that. The diversity here is much bigger than other places in the country, and it also looks a lot different as well in colour and texture and size.
It's very different from other parts of the world. The fish are utterly magnificent, and the corals, I have very much enjoyed the snorkelling.
The corals over here aren't subjected to the same sort of water entrapment, so the coral's very healthy.
It's been joyful. The world that opens up to you underwater when you're snorkeling is just quite wondrous.
What we're also able to offer is a trial dive experience, which we call a Discover Scuba Dive, to give people the experience of getting to be immersed in that marine world, assisted by an instructor like myself. So we're able to really broaden their minds on what reef systems are and how important they are to the environment. I guess everyone speaks about the East Coast and the Great Barrier Reef, but actually the biodiversity here on the West Coast is unrivaled anywhere in the world. You get an abundance of the tropical reef fish, but also your pelagics there too, so your rays, your turtles.
You're going to be seeing humpback whales from May through to September, so all up the coast from Fremantle to Exmouth and through the Kimberley.
They do favour those protected bays with their calves because whales don't have a nipple, so they just release their milk very high in fat. Plenty of energy for the calf to grow before they head down to the Southern Ocean.
The Southern Ocean is a whaling sanctuary. Numbers are really quite good. About 40,000 whales estimated to be in the West Coast population.
And at this time of year, you're seeing the mothers teach the calves on their migration back south to Antarctica.
We got to have a bit of a swim in Ningaloo itself, in Turquoise Bay.
The name Turquoise Bay just is so apt. Just this turquoise stretching out. Of course, in those warm waters, turtles, even sometimes sea snakes.
Got to see some spectacular fish in there, angelfish, butterfly fish. And then we also had a walk down around Yardie Creek, a lovely fossilised section of reef. So that was a piece of reef that was growing several million years ago when it was underwater.
Deep-sided gorges that eroded away when you get the occasional heavy falls of rain. And of course, amongst all of those, you get these different little habitats. You can see all the clefts and crevices in the rocks, and that's where things like your rock wallabies hide out. Fruit bats, they roost in the mangroves along the shore. And there's bird life around, there's bowerbirds there, there's ospreys, there's the beautiful voice of the butcher birds. So it's a very, very nice little location.
And then having the opportunity to go into Exmouth itself and hear about the history of that town.
We got a chance to visit the Discovery Centre. It's a really amazing facility that they've built there.
I believe that was supported in large part by Twiggy Forest and the Minderoo Foundation. And there is really good displays of fish, unique species, a lot of endemic species that are found in this area.
A real highlight of the trip is just the magnificent blue water and these lovely little islands that are just dotted all throughout the place.
One of the activities we offered in the morning was a nice walk in the Cape Peron National Park. We had easy beach access on the Explorers, so guests could get straight onto the beach, climb the sand dune and start the walk.
At the tip of the cape there's a lookout, and that gives you a spectacular view of the bay below.
The sand that you are exposed to when you land is that bright red, what we expect to be desert sand. But of course it's all over the country, and the best thing about it is you see the transition from the bright red sand into your normal sandy coloured dunes, so you can actually see where it changes from one to the other. We relocated the ship about 20 miles to a place known as Dirk Hartog Island.
One of the interesting things about Dirk Hartog Island was the first place that a European left proof of a visit. On a place called Cape Inscription, he left what's known as Hartog's Plate. Incredibly, 100 years later, another Dutch ship came to that site with absolutely no knowledge that Hartog had been there, and they found Hartog's Plate. 1,000,000 to 1 fluke.
It's absolutely fascinating, the history, the natural and the human history.
Because it's so untouched in this side of the country, we get to experience a lot more wilderness than most people would. Most of the places we visit are actually marine parks or marine sanctuaries, so they're protected by both the state and the federal government.
You're very much involved in the environment that you're in. You're out on the islands, so you're really having that opportunity to discover these places.
We went to Turtle Bay. I feel like it should be a national park. It's just beautiful. It's just south of Ningaloo that has this vibrant, brilliant snorkeling reef right off the beach. Any swimming level is achievable, pool noodles and whatever you need. And it's just a beautiful morning of just snorkeling.
It's home to one of the largest meadows of seagrass on the West Australian coastline, and that brings in the dugongs. They're a very shy animal, so difficult to spot, but this is definitely one of the best places in the country to see them.
Every trip we try to do a dinner outdoors, get to watch the sunset and get to see the stars come out.
The Abrolhos Islands were first identified and mapped by Frederick de Houtman, 1619 I believe it was. He saw these little breaking waves off the bow of his vessel, and that was where there wasn't supposed to be any land. They mapped that area with the identification Abrolhos, and that means to keep your eyes open in Portuguese.
And the other thing about the Abrolhos, of course, is the famed wreck of the Batavia. It's an astonishing story.
The Batavia was a vessel run by the Dutch East India Company, and that didn't manage to find its way around the Abrolhos, so they ran into a reef there, and then that resulted in massive issues in terms of piracy, mutiny.
And if you know the story of the Bounty, that's quite a tame story compared to the Batavia.
There was some people that weren't very nice involved in that.
This wonderful interaction between human history and natural history is just endlessly interesting.
Meeting that wonderful family whose livelihood is just based around the crayfish industry and now the pearling industry on these incredibly remote Cay atolls.
We're in Post Office Island in the southern group of the Abrolhos Islands. We're about 55 kilometres off the coast of Geraldton in the mid-west of West Australia. The coral reef system is super rich. We've got a warm current coming from Indonesia, the Luan current, that feeds all the corals, and the coral gardens are where the crayfish live. It's amazing habitat for lobster. We sort of show them around the island and give them a bit of a talk about the family history. You know, it's a really nice day. My granddad came here in the late 50s as one of the 10-pound poms as a lobster fisherman from Dover, and he started up crayfishing here. My mum developed the pearl farming, and then my generation has developed more the tourism side of things. My wife's a designer. She designs some beautiful jewellery with our pearls. She's Italian, so we've sort of taken our love of Italy and brought it to the islands. It's sort of like that Italian concept of the provenance of the area. So here we have fantastic local scallops, octopus, crayfish, awesome fish. And then on the mainland you have local olive oil, local cheese. We incorporate all of that, so everyone has a feeling like we're in West Australia and we're tasting West Australia. The chefs come on the island, take a couple of the local native herbs, always give them crays and scallops and provide them with some local taste to provide for their guests. And I'm sure their chefs will make something amazing.
We have the luxury of so many varieties of fish that we on the West Coast get to enjoy fresh. So we love our West Australian seafood. The islands here are a good example of the seafood that is available in Western Australia. As you can see here, it's a beautiful array of fresh produce. We've collected a bunch of the local seagrasses and samphire and saltbush, and we'll see what we can do with that. We try as much as possible to use all the local produce and try and bring all the natural flavours of the island out in the local crayfish. Most likely be a canapé or an entree today, and I'll get some input from my chefs on board and we'll create something that's going to be nice and fresh.
A lot of Western Australian seafood is featured in our menu. Things like prawns, crayfish, local smoked salmon. In every voyage that we do, we want to showcase local produce with our breakfast buffet, lunches and 3-course dinner.
We always hope that there is leftover so that we get something to try as well.
The open bridge policy, it allows people to experience a lot more of the ship, to see how we do things. And just as I like showing people these fantastic locations that I've visited, I also like people to be able to see what we actually do on the bridge. It's not a great secret. And having people all around me while I'm doing the most intricate navigation is never a problem for me. I understand that for some passengers, this is the once in a lifetime thing. For me, it's just work, but for them, they absolutely love it. They love coming up and having a look. This is all about the passenger and their greatest experience. So the open bridge is to enhance the experience of our passengers.
Coral Adventure, it's a beautiful ship. Everything on the ship, it's specifically designed for expedition purposes. Guests do look at beautiful places when they are with us, but it's when they get to know the engine room, it's normally when the first group comes down, and then by word of mouth it just spreads like wildfire that that's a place that you need to go. We are the only company actually who encourage passengers to come down to engine room. In this presentation with the guests, I try to go through all the equipment that we have so that they know what goes behind the scenes. So an engine room tour actually gives them an opportunity to walk through the door and have a look at how everything on the vessel is actually working and how we endeavor to make their stay as comfortable as possible. Our guests are very interested mostly in knowing about how we produce water, how we take care of sewage, how the vessel is stabilized, how main propulsion works, because this vessel being a diesel electric vessel, it's not conventional. So they're very interested in knowing all those little tidbits. And the fact that this vessel is so advanced, and they do appreciate how everything is run. We take pride in it and we ask the passengers to come down and have a look, appreciate the background knowledge.
Now we know a little bit about this part of the world and it's absolutely fascinating.
One of the wonderful features has been the presence of Richard and Howard, who are the two guest lecturers on board, and they have enlivened and given depth to our understanding of what's going on in the most remarkable way. Learning about the most wonderful things exceeded my expectations.
They have brought people on board who really know Western Australia. And that sort of expertise and knowledge, I think, is really wonderful.
I think Coral Expeditions, they do a brilliant job, the fact that it's Australian owned, and I like the idea that they support and offer employment to Australians and give them the opportunities to develop in this field.
We quite often have passengers who are repeat customers, and I love it. They know the ship, they know our routine, and they know us, and that makes our job so much more enjoyable because they're not passengers, they're friends.